In this video, I give an overview or a review depending on how much background knowledge you have about scientific reports. We specifically focus on the MRAD format that is most familiar in scientific settings. While scientific reports might vary depending on context, they tend to follow the same structure. They start with an introduction, they continue on to some sort of methods, they have results, and they have a discussion section. This is typically referred to as the MRAD format. What's beneficial about having this consistent format regardless of context is that readers can predict what each section will contain, and they bring with them a set of expectations that allows them to read the report more efficiently and effectively. Most readers tend to jump around throughout a report. They don't read them linearly, and if the report itself does not have the elements that they expect, it would prevent them from reading effectively and efficiently. So in a lot of ways, the genre is constrained by the scientific community's expectations of what should be involved in a report. For the rest of the video, I'm going to go over the key sections that are the most tricky parts of the report. Reports typically have an introduction, methods, results, and a discussion section. These sections are the key elements, and you might have some other variations on these sections, but that would be dependent on your context, but you'll have something that looks like each of these sections in any kind of report that you write. So first, the introduction. I have another video for you that reviews introduction structures in particular. So here I just want to give a quick overview of what an introduction is meant to do. The goal is that it establishes what's been said on the topic and gives some sort of gap. What is it, the problem that you are addressing? What's the gap in the research that you are attempting to fill with your own report? So the literature review briefly summarizes what has been already said on the topic. This might be a separate section for you, a background section, but your report should have some element of here's what's been said, here's the current research that we are building on. The current research summary also then allows you to establish what hasn't been said, the gap that you are addressing in your report. So that gap might not be a huge thing, but it might be fairly small, and usually you have some sort of however or something that states what hasn't been currently addressed and what it is that you're then planning to do about that gap. So it's typically also a fairly robust section. It has more than one paragraph, which is a little bit contrary than what you might have encountered about introductions in other settings. And it also has that inverted triangle structure. The final thing that an introduction does is it previews the report's focus. It lets the reader know what to expect in the remainder of the report. So for more about introductions, go see the other introduction video that I've created. Because a report primarily focuses on the work that you've already completed, after you've given the background in the introduction, you then move on to your methods, which outlines what it is you've done. This also sets up the framework for explaining the results that you get in the following section. So features about the methods section are that it's in the past tense, it's focused on what was accomplished and done. It's also in the passive voice because you want to convey the sense that if anyone completed the methods that you used, they would get the same results. You typically write this in the passive voice. So the idea here in the methods is that you offer enough detail to not only allow someone to replicate what you did, but also provide a good understanding of the why. The methods should be based on best practices and the standards, and so by providing that information in the methodology or the method section, you help your reader understand what you did and why you did it. After you've outlined what you did, you then want to outline what it is that you found. So the goal of the results section is that you summarize the key findings of your research. This means you might not put every single piece of data that you collected, but you want to highlight the key findings that are important to solving the problem or addressing the gap that you've outlined in your introduction. So you focus on what you found rather than why it's significant. You address the significance in the following section. In addition, you often include a lot of visualizations such as tables, graphs, charts that allow you to visualize the findings and help your reader understand what it is that you found. The other element is that you provide context for the results. You never just want to throw in a piece of a table or a piece of data without contextualizing it in some way. So the results does that work of essentially stating what you found and providing the information that will then help you move into the discussion section, which will follow. The discussion section is the key element of the report. This is where you do a lot of the heavy lifting of explaining why. A lot of times writers shortcut this section because they think, hey, I've given all of my data and the results. I don't need to explain anything else. And so this section ends up being not fully addressed or underdeveloped or really sort of thrown together at the last minute. Your goal should be to emphasize your results and craft an argument about their significance. So this makes it do a lot of work for your report, and if you don't really pay attention to it, then you're going to shortchange your argument or you're going to shortchange the report itself. So this section examines the findings and it really emphasizes the so what. What do you want the reader to understand or do based on these results? If this was a recommendation report, you would then move from discussion into recommendations because your argument would then contextualize what you recommend for the reader. For more of a research-focused study, it then emphasizes the key findings, what was interesting, what was relevant, what are you doing to contribute new knowledge to the field of study. So you often connect your results to other research. You pull back in some of that research to show how your findings either confirm or potentially complicate past findings, or again, the ways that you're addressing the gap or the problem that you set out to do in the introduction. So think of this section as being heavily persuasive. It's focused on your interpretation of the data, and it's really doing a lot of work to persuade the reader that what you found was significant, important, and relevant to what they need. The final section that I want to talk a little bit about is the conclusion. So this might look, again, a couple of different ways. It might be stated as a summary, or it might be part of the discussion section, but some part of the report needs to do some concluding work. The goal of a conclusion is to summarize the key ideas and also to point to future work. So the conclusion allows you to summarize your argument. You then can reiterate the significance of the data for your reader, which means that you can have one last shot at being persuasive and to persuade them that what you found matters. And then the last thing that a conclusion does by way of concluding is suggest future research or connects to larger issues that perhaps you addressed in the introduction. And in this way, it would provide closure for the reader, but it would also link back to the introduction. So I hope this video has been helpful just to provide a little bit of overview and review or some explanation about the various elements of technical reports. You might be very familiar with a lot of these elements, but this video just goes through each of those sections to help you understand better what each of those sections does in the overall goal and context of the report.